By now, you guys know how the drill works. I'm not going to spend too much time on the intro on this motherfucker. I'm just going to jump right into the questions. Now, I went through all the questions, and I'm going to be answering as many as I possibly can across 4 videos this time. A new video each day this week, except Christmas days, because we all know nobody's going to be watching this shit. You know, the big part, instead of doing just the 3 videos that I normally did before, I have to do 4 videos because I got that many questions this time around. So that's why we're going to need the extra video to do these motherfuckers. Now, remember, repeat questions that were asked in prior videos, I'm not going to be mentioning on this motherfucker. Because after all, if I already answered the damn things, there's no reason for me to do that shit again. Any new but similar questions that people may have asked will be answered only once. That way I cut down on the time needed to answer all the questions. And those questions I just didn't feel like answering, well, tough shit. Nah, I'm just playing, but in any event, let's just jump right into the questions, and I'll try to go in the order in which I received these motherfuckers. First up, from Mofer Clan, what is your game of the year and why? And this was a very popular question, so for those of you who asked this question, it's going to be answered here. I would choose The Last of Us over Grand Theft Auto and BioShock Infinite, which is going to finish in a distant third. I'm going to talk about BioShock Infinite in a later video. Now, I'll be honest. It's hard to go wrong with any one of these campaigns, The Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto, and I could sit here and nitpick for days over the details of each campaign. Both games had a campaign worthy of Game of the Year. The Last of Us is a story-driven zombie survival game, and Grand Theft Auto is the humorous open-world game with tons of shit packed into one disc. But that one disc feature is what separates these games. The deciding factor is what else do you put on the disc beside the campaign. The fact that The Last of Us multiplayer worked from day one, while Grand Theft Auto is still rolling out shit they promised from their reveal, shows that Rockstar didn't think their multiplayer through. They desperately needed a beta, and what they put on the disc was an inferior product. It was more ambitious, but it was certainly more buggy and more incomplete than what The Last of Us put. So I have to look at everything you put on a disc, and if you're gonna put something on a disc, it better fucking work. The Last of Us didn't have the widespread issues that Grand Theft Auto had. It didn't have to worry about adding all this content later because they couldn't fit it in at the time of release. It certainly wasn't as ambitious as Grand Theft Auto, but it actually worked, and that's a perfect reason why you have open betas to test shit. The Last of Us was a complete project. Grand Theft Auto wasn't. Next up, Inferno Fox wants to know 3 things. What games would I like to see remakes of? Can I explain why I'm not getting Gran Turismo 6? And what games from my childhood would I go back to if I could? As much as I love certain games, I don't like the idea of just rolling out a game with updated graphics. When games are created, they're created with the technology they have at the time. So this concept of rolling out games in HD with shinier graphics and shit, that doesn't entice me to buy a game. What I would prefer is a completely reimagined game. You know, taking an original story, starting from scratch with that same idea, but creating a brand new story and a brand new game with today's technology. Now, one game people would say would be an excellent candidate for that would be Final Fantasy VII, but I would hate to see that game brought back and ruin the charm that the game had. You know, the game's appeal came from the fact that it was revolutionary 15 years ago when it was released. Today, it would absolutely get killed on the market in terms of storyline and graphics. But if I had to choose a game to reimagine and recreate from scratch, I would choose Metal Gear Solid. The first Metal Gear that was on PlayStation, that would be the game that I would say to choose for the full reimagining treatment. As for Gran Turismo 6, it suffers from an unthinkable problem. It's too damn good. No, really, play the game and seeing how accurate the driving is, with the exception of damage and cars not flipping over and shit like that, means that each year, the accuracy of the game truly doesn't improve much. It's been top of the class, and realistically, there's very little improvements that they can actually make to the driving portion of the game. So the changes that could be made, like racetracks, original courses, soundtracks, or the opening fucking menus, they're not touched. The game's gonna have 1,000 cars or so, yet it's only gonna have 30 races. And those races tell you that you need a Fiat, or a Mustang, or a go-kart. It's like, why do you have 1,000 cars in the game, yet the overwhelming majority can't be used in all these races? You know, I love playing Gran Turismo, but it's a victim of its own quality. It's so painstakingly accurate that playing it each year doesn't feel any different. Yet, I'm still playing the same races each fucking year. I don't want to race the Autumn Ring over and over and over again. I don't want to do the Sunday Cup, or the European Cup, or the Motherfucker Cup, or the 2 girls in 1 cup. I don't want to race that shit 8 fucking times just to rank up to go to the next race. Gran Turismo has not improved on that since Gran Turismo 2, and for me, that's the reason why I'm not going to be getting Gran Turismo 6. As for my favorite game to go back to, this is easy, Tecmo Super Baseball. Not Tecmo Super Bowl or Tecmo Football, but baseball. Reason being is one day I decided I was going to take all the teams as a human control player, and I was going to do a 162 game season with each team. That means well over 2,000 games to complete an entire season. Now, I think I played that shit for like 7 or 8 years in a row. And I got to like 100 games per team, and then I just didn't have the time to finish it before my Super Nintendo blew out. But that would be the game that I would go back to if I had my chance. Gerd Nerd wants to know, what is my favorite movie of all time, and what do I think the next Grand Theft Auto will be? Favorite movie is easy, and anybody in my age group is probably going to have fond memories of The Goonies. It was the ultimate kids' adventure movie back in the day. As for Grand Theft Auto, usually they do some episodic content before their number series and shit like that. So my guess would be some kind of mini Grand Theft Auto before Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. That's just my guess, but I don't think they're going to go back and remake anything. Jim Bob asked a question that someone is going to ask in the very next question as well, so I'm going to answer it here. In the film The Purge, the general public has one night per year where all crime, including murder, is legal. If that happened in real life, who would be on your Purge hit list and why? Now, the person who asked a similar question asked for only one person, where Jim Bob has a hit list, which sounds like more than one person. So I'm going to try and cover both topics. My hit list would probably have thousands of people. You know, it ranges from anybody who's annoying like Justin Bieber, Kanye West, and any Kardashian to world dictators like Kim Jong-un or drug cartel lords and shit like that. But if I had to choose just one person, I would want it to be a good one. And chances are, if I chose some corrupt, evil dictator in the world, that really wouldn't change the country, as some asshole would just take over and shit like that. So if I decided to kill Vladimir Putin in Russia, it just means Dmitry Medvedev would take over and nothing would change in that country. So, my top choice would be Fred Phelps of the Westboro Baptist Church. You know, the fuckers aren't even a church. It's nothing more than a hate group here in the United States. They protest anything and everything. From showing up at United States military funerals just to protest, to going to Jewish synagogues, to Catholic churches, to colleges protesting that black people shouldn't be allowed in. These motherfuckers' only goal is to spread hate, lies, and bullshit. I would love nothing more to eliminate any one of those world dictators in hopes it would relieve some of these countries, but the reality is, it wouldn't have any effect on those countries. Removing Fred Phelps pretty much disbands the most hateful group of assholes this country has. So choosing him would be my top option, and that's why I think it would be a better choice. AVX Gamer went with 4 fucking questions, and you can see the 4th question I just answered in the prior one, so we'll be skipping that joint. But I can spend an hour on each one of these questions alone, but I'm going to keep this motherfucker brief. Number 1, can the US be fixed with all its problems? Now, first of all, we have a shitload of problems. There's no way all of our problems would ever be fixed. Now, I'm not sure which exact problems you're referring to, you know, because we have political problems, we have money problems, the economy's still recovering after almost 12 fucking years now. We still have social inequalities, racial inequalities, gender inequalities, financial inequalities, poverty, hunger, disease, healthcare issues. You know, without a specific problem, I'm not exactly sure what problems you're referring to. And if you're asking about all our problems in general, no, they're never going to be fixed. You know, most of these problems have existed for over 200 years now, so they're ongoing things that are never going to be completely resolved. You know, if you wanted to narrow down the selection criteria to which problem I could rant about, sure. But without knowing if there's a specific problem, the only answer I could give is that none of our problems will ever truly be fixed. Number 2, do you agree or disagree with abortion? Oh, the can of worms this is going to open up. Again, I'll be brief because this is the kind of question that leads to verbal riots up in this motherfucker. Now, the argument over pro-life and pro-choice is based on what people believe. Do you believe life starts at the time of conception or at the time of birth? Are impregnated cells inside a woman considered a life form or not? To me personally, it's not a life. A block of cells is still only a block of cells. Cells themselves are living organisms, but I would not classify those cells as a life yet. They will one day grow into a life, but I do not agree that they are a life at the time of conception. I believe a woman should have the right to do with her body as she sees fit. I believe abortions should be a legal option. However, in regards to abortion, I believe abortion should only be legal up until the child cannot survive outside of the womb. If a fetus can viably live outside of the womb, then I think that is the point abortion should not be performed unless it's for medically necessary reasons. You know, I think people who oppose abortion sometimes forget that it's not some easy decision that's made very lightly. You know, it's not like women choose to have an abortion like choosing a pair of shoes at a department store. You know, you don't see women having abortion parties or making it a ladies' night out on town. No. This is a life-altering decision for them, one that's excruciating to make. Abortions take physical and emotional tolls on women, so to think that this is some easy decision that they make is absolutely insane to believe. No woman in life dreams of an abortion. No woman aspires to have an abortion, but in the cases where it becomes a necessity or a last resort, they should have that option available to them. Number 3, and this is the question a few people asked, so I'll answer everyone's question right here. Are video games the cause of violence? Absolutely, positively not. However, video games are most likely a contributing factor to some cases where mental health comes into question. Look, This notion that video games makes people violent is bullshit. Countries around the world play the same fucking video games that we do here in the US, and they don't have the gun violence problems that we have. It's not the video games issue, it's a mental health issue. But a violent video game in the hands of someone with mental instability is certainly something that could trigger the behavior. The video game doesn't cause the violence, it doesn't justify the reasoning. Something is wrong with these people before video games ever came into their life. So blaming video games is not the issue. In a good portion of these cases, parents are either not noticing that their child has mental health concerns, or in some cases they just outright ignore it. In most of these cases of mass violence, the individuals have gone undiagnosed and have easy access to a weapon that causes harm. Video games don't tell you to go on a murdering. Video games don't give a person access to a weapon. But when people look to scapegoat something or look for something to blame, it's an easy target. But it's not the cause of their violence or behavior. At most, it's a trigger or an outlet for it, but it's certainly not the cause. Trans Gaming decided he was going to send in one question, realized it was just a fuck up, and then he decided to send in a few more later. So let's start with this one. He wants to know if Epic Pineapple has caused any allergies to pineapples. You know, I guess he just wanted his name to be shown in the video with this silly question. So yeah, mission achieved, motherfucker. He actually asked a series of questions later on that were more legitimate, and he wants to know if I will do an unboxing of PlayStation 4. Have you ever seen me post anything other than video games and snowboarding on my helmet cam on my channel? Of course not. I have no interest in showing people what's already been covered countless times on YouTube, so no, there will be no unboxing of PlayStation 4 whenever I get that motherfucker. Do you have an allergy to pineapples? What the fuck is your fascination with pineapples? No, I don't have any allergy to any food. I don't know where you come up with this idea that I'm allergic to pineapples up in this motherfucker. And finally, how many times have you felt the urge to throw your controller against the wall because you got killed by some bullshit in Call of Duty? Minimum 100. But that was most likely from bad games like Modern Warfare 2, getting commando runs and shit like that, Black Ops 1 with the lag in this motherfucker, and Modern Warfare 3 just being fucking Modern Warfare 3. Next up, Happy Dude has two questions. First is, do I like Formula 1 racing, and what are my views on it, and why don't I use movie clips in my videos anymore? Well, for F1 racing, I really don't follow it. I know about it, but it's not popular enough here in the US as it is in Europe. You know, here in the US, NASCAR is our top racing sport, you know, with rednecks making left turns at 200 miles an hour. F1 is obviously more technical and much more dangerous, since you obviously have open wheels and open air seating with the driver's head exposed on courses and shit like that. But we have very few courses here for F1 racing. I believe there are maybe 10 courses in the US built for it. The sport is dominated by European drivers. The sport is dominated by European countries. So here in the US, F1 is never going to have the appeal that redneck racing has. As for movie clips, well, first of all, there's the copyright issue, and now that Google's going to be more strict with the copyright protection, it's quite possible I won't even be able to use movie clips anymore. Now, before the policy change, I always try not to do the same thing over and over again. You know, one of the things you learn in making videos is that if you bombard people with the same specialty content, it gets stale. And specialty videos like Mission Impossible, movie clips, blooper videos, curse-free commentaries, they're done sparingly so that when I do get around to doing them, it's a treat for my viewers. But now that I'm playing Call of Duty again, chances are I might do a movie clip video sometime down the road. But again, with Google's new changes, I'll have to see how that works and if I get in trouble up in this motherfucker. Next up, from Leon Crazy, who has 4 questions. Have you ever considered using Reddit to replace this piece of shit Google Plus comments YouTube has? If I knew how, I certainly would, but have no fucking clue how that works, and I'm too lazy to figure that shit out. What is in your pocket right now? Who says I have pockets? No, I have nothing in my pockets right now. I'm home relaxing, so it's not like I'm walking around with shit in my pockets up in this motherfucker. Who besides yourself is your favorite YouTuber? You know, I'm not even going to answer this bullshit. You know, it's just going to lead to a pissing match of opinions. It's like saying, which one of your subscribers do you like the most? No matter what you answer, it's a no-win answer no matter what you say, so I'm just not going to answer this motherfucker. What is your opinion on Linux, specifically Ubuntu and Mint? You know, I'll make this simple. First of all, every time I see Linux or Linux, whatever, someone tells me that I'm saying the shit wrong. When I ask them how to say it, they tell me something different. The fuck, man? I need an enunciation guide on this bullshit. I've heard Linux, I've heard Linux, I've heard Linux. I don't give a fuck. That being said, I know it's an operating system. That's the extent of my knowledge. As for Ubuntu and Mint, the only mint I know is an herb that makes a damn good ice cream, and fucking Ubuntu sounds like a president of an African nation or something. So that's my knowledge of this motherfucker. Warzone would like to say hi to Mom, and he also has 3 questions. First, what is your biggest phobia, and don't act all Rambo and say nothing? Well, you have to understand that a phobia is a clinically diagnosed irrational fear of something. There's a difference in something that scares you and something that you're absolutely terrified of because it's an irrational fear. I don't have any clinical phobias, you know, such as spiders like arachnophobia, or heights, or flying, or the number 13, or some shit like that. There are things I worry about. There are things that'll scare you, you know, like something unexpectedly jumping out at you, but I really don't have a true phobia. The closest thing I would say is a fear of heights without a support or harness on. You know, for example, you ever seen those videos of workers having to climb up the world's largest antenna to change a light bulb or some bullshit like that? Holy shit! They do most of that climbing without safety features. Every time I watch a video like that, my hands get all sweaty and shit, man. You start getting fucking nervous. But it's not so much the fear of heights, it's the fear of not using safety precautions. But if you put me on a ledge with no harness, no safety device, and the only thing stopping me from falling to my death is my own balance, yeah, that would scare the shit out of me. But that's not really a phobia as it is natural fear. Anybody would probably shit bricks in that same situation without a safety. So that, to me, is not a phobia, it's just natural fear. Next, what do you think about Bungie moving Destiny September? I think it's fucking brilliant if you ask me. Does it suck that there won't be an awesome game out earlier? Sure, but look at the flip side. Do you want an untested product rolled out early like Grand Theft Auto Online? Do you want to pay for an unfinished, unpolished product and wait for patches? Or would you rather wait for them to get all the kinks out and get their shit together? You know, not to mention, we're getting a full beta. We're going to be getting a full beta treated like a normal release, so it's not like we have to wait to September to play the game. We're getting the beta to test it in March or April, and Bungie's going to have months to fix the game before the actual release date. Shit, this is a true fucking beta. This is not some bullshit like Battlefield calls a beta. This is actually going to be a working beta. And realistically, when would they be able to roll out a beta and the full game with testing? If they give us the beta in March, do you really think they're going to be able to fix everything by April or May? No, it's impossible. If you don't believe me, just look at what happened with Battlefield. The fact is, we're going to be getting this game, and they're going to have months to fix this game. Months to polish this motherfucker up and fix all the problems that we find online in a brand new series. This is not a series that has happened before or a game that's possibly occurred in the past. No, this is a brand new series, a brand new idea, and they're going to take the actual months out of the year to fix that motherfucker before we actually pay for it. As for role-playing games versus first-person shooters, you know, naturally a role-playing game has more content, but games are now starting to blend in elements into one another. You know, BioShock is classified as a first-person shooter, but anyone will tell you it puts elements of RPG into the game. Hell, Black Ops 2 had multiple endings, which is definitely an RPG element. RPGs are turning into shooting games, albeit not first-person shooters, but Mass Effect was a third-person shooter, and it was an action RPG nonetheless. End of the day, role-playing games have more content than a first-person shooter, and I would always choose that regardless. Shut It Down 12 also has 4 questions. When is the next Mission Impossible? When I feel like doing it, motherfucker. You know, it's funny, I just did Mission Impossible 7 a month or 2 ago, and it was the longest video in the series, had the most voiceovers, the most jokes, more conversations with the voice, which people were asking for, and epic pineapple. And then it received the least amount of views so far. So people asked, and then they didn't watch. You know, whether the video just wasn't good, whether it was too long, if they didn't like Mass Effect, whatever the fuck it is. I gave people the request they wanted, and then they didn't watch the motherfucker. So in any event, I'll do Mission Impossible whenever I get around to it. Also, do you think Titanfall will beat Call of Duty? Now, I don't know if you're talking about sales or the quality of the game, but in sales, it's not going to top Call of Duty, simply because it's not coming to all platforms. If the game came to Sony consoles instead of just Xbox and PC, it might have a chance, but even then, I don't think it's going to top Call of Duty in sales. Now, in terms of quality and fun, that remains to be seen. You know, you got to remember, all the footage we've seen is marketing footage, so people still have to play the game online to see if it's balanced and fun. But I can predict now that it won't top Call of Duty in sales. Does Google changing YouTube affect your channel? A little bit, but not much. You know, I know starting in January, posting videos are now going to be audited by YouTube for various reasons, and I don't know what those audits will entail. I also don't know what the criteria of those audits will be, especially with all the shit that I've been posting. You know, music on my videos, movies, titties during hip-fire commentaries that end in 69. I have no idea if that shit will be allowed, but I plan on starting every one of my YouTube videos by saying, hey, YouTube auditor, fuck you, and we're going to see how that goes from there. They're also coming down on the copyright material, you know, but I don't monetize anything that I believe could be a copyright issue, so that really doesn't affect me too much. You know, I'm worried that songs I could use before, I wouldn't be able to now, but in most cases, the songs I use are allowed, and as long as I don't claim them for money, I should be okay, but we'll see how that remains in the future and how Google decides to change all this bullshit. And finally, how often do you curse at work? I work at a really cool place that's young, and we curse all the time. My boss curses all the time, the CEO comes down and he curses up a storm, so it's pretty much a regular occurrence here. I just fit right the fuck in. Anyways, that'll do it for the first video in the question and answer session. We're gonna have 3 more videos this week. One tomorrow, and the final one's on Thursday and Friday. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.